Welcome, everybody, to the Live Ultralight podcast powered by Ultra Vitals. Today, we're going to be talking about the history of Ultra Vitals. It's our 10-year anniversary. Actually, a couple months ago was our official 10-year anniversary, but this is the year, so we are getting around to talking about it. And today, we wanted to bring on our two longest standing employees to also help me with some of the conversation here and talk about what it's been like over the 10 years. So we'll get some perspectives from Dave as well as Derek, and I think there'll be some humor probably in this one as we just reflect back on some of the things. There'll be some interesting aspects of just starting a business and getting it up and running. But I'm definitely looking forward to this one. And in conjunction with this, I'll just kind of throw this out early on. There is going to be a sale going on. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing there, and there'll be some cool limited time swag that we'll be doing in conjunction with that with orders. So with that, I guess as the stage, I wanted to maybe just start a little bit talking about where we're at today, and then we're gonna jump way back 10 years ago, back when I was 23 years old and wanted to start a business. So today is a pretty cool milestone for me, at least to pass that 10-year mark was it's hard to like stop and just even recognize what that meant, if it meant anything to me, how do you internalize that. And I think the reality was like, it wasn't a surprise to me that we hit 10 years, but I think the interesting part is just that it has been 10 years. That it just went by that fast. I guess it's I don't know. In a lot of ways, it can still feel like we're a gritty startup around here, and then in a lot of other ways, it feels like we're like this established brand with a whole bunch of employees that run their departments now and do different things. And so it's just been a really big shift and really interesting thing to look at. But yeah, crossing 10 years was really interesting. This also came in the mail last year. This is a really heavy paperweight from Shopify, but on the back here it shows that we've shipped 100,000 orders, and that was last year. So obviously we're above and beyond that. That was a really interesting thing to just randomly show up in the mail for us too. It's just like, holy cow, we've sent out 100,000 orders, and I don't even know how many of those Dave packed and sent himself, but had to be quite a few of them, especially with some of the promos we've done over the years. That's helped us to get in front of customers, like the free plus or free pillow, plus shipping offer that many of you probably have seen and heard of, and that's probably something we should circle back to as we go through the history and timeline of this, why we did things like that. But it's really cool. I mean, this year we had 3 products land in Outside Magazine's kind of Gear of the Year selections. We've had, like, looking at even our biggest supplier, Torre, who supplies to some of the most premium brands in the world, $100 million brands. And I mean, actually they supply fabric to, companies like Lululemon that are billion-dollar companies. And I think what was cool as I was thinking about that this morning was, like, even though we're even manufacturing with a manufacturer that helps billion-dollar companies, they actually showcase us internally. So I don't even know how many of the VPs of Torre, this massive, high-performance fabric company, I don't even know how many of the VPs have our jackets. They'll actually come back to us and purchase our jackets to give to like their vice presidents and stuff, because they want to show them the technology that we're innovating with. They also have this newsletter that goes out to like 40,000 employees and alumni, and they did like brand spotlights specifically on us and the ways that we've been innovating product in things like the Tusher rain jacket and other pieces. So it's just really, there are some really cool milestones, and it's a really cool place to be right now to just see the team, the innovations, the product, where it's at right now. And especially when I kind of zoom back to think about, hey, like when I was 23 years old, so this is 2013, I guess it was technically 2014 when the company started, like just thinking like, where do I think we would have been in 10 years? And I don't know. Like, I remember when I started the business, like the number one goal is like, if I could build this business to, do $1 million in revenue, like I'll have made it. Like that was like the biggest thing I could possibly think of happening. Right. So, yeah, I mean, that was like kicking it out the door. But I guess to recap, what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of zoom back now to the earliest days of Outdoor Vitals and maybe share some of the things that I don't think I've ever shared before because they were never like important or pertinent to the conversation. And maybe it's like sometimes I think people don't realize how gritty startups can be. We have like this new this new age of business where people start a business, it's their second or third business. They go and they have funding out of the gate, either their own money or they've got, funding partners and venture capital. And so you like a lot of startups now, I feel like just start and it's like instantly they're acting like they've made it, meaning like they've got the employees, they've got the nice office space, they've got this dialed in product, they've got all of these things. Well, that was nothing like how we started, right? I had no relationships in the industry. I had no money. I had nothing but like a hope and a dream of what could be done. And so it was like really, really gritty. In fact, I wasn't even sure when I started this company out if I was going to be selling to hunters or to backpackers. So that last year of college for me, before the business was even founded, I started purchasing and selling online a broad spectrum of different things. I sold like packable wire saws. Like if you guys know what those are, like the little, I don't even know, it's like a wire and it's just got some jagged things on it. I sold some of those. I sold a bunch of headlamps. I sold I'm talking like 100 plus headlamps. I was selling, I was sourcing and starting down sleeping bags, tactical flashlights. I sold some like tactical flashlights. I mean, it was like, I was just literally still figuring things out. But the sleeping bags is really what stuck and where I started to like get a bigger vision of what could be done. At that point in time, I really was just selling anything and everything and trying to figure out what direction I wanted to go. But I was also getting more and more solidified, I think, in the backpacking space as far as like, this is the direction I want to go. So it was in 2014 is when I like really kind of nailed that down, I feel like, and was like, all right, let's buy more sleeping bags. So I bought 3 sleeping bags, and listed those online. Sold those, bought 5, sold those, bought 5, sold those, bought 10. And I just kept ordering these small amounts of samples out of factories. And what people probably don't realize is like right now, for instance, when we are producing a product, Derek will say, hey, I've got 40 people that I want to send this backpack to or this hoodie to or something like that to, test it, to review it, to look at it. These are YouTubers or writers or, Brigham, and then Brigham will have his own group. So we may produce like 40 units of just samples, right? And so when I look back then and I was ordering like 3 and 5 and 10, like the factory legitimately thought I was ordering samples. And to me, I was actually ordering inventory and selling that inventory. So I did that for about 6 months and then got to a point where I was ordering enough that I could start to customize the bag. So that was like the only time frame in Outdoor Vitals history where we weren't actually designing the gear, was about 5-6 months in the very, very beginning. After that, we started making tweaks, making the bags bigger, switching to YKK zippers, adding logos, switching out fabrics. I mean, it just all cascaded from there. But it was gritty, right? I mean, it was out of my apartment at first, and then I moved into a duplex, and then it was out. And so like I was sectioning off portions of the house, and just that was like where I was packaging products. I was shipping them into Amazon. There's probably some photos out there somewhere too, where I was legitimately packaging products, and I was doing it in trash bags. I was just like repackaging all the products into trash bags because I didn't have like branded poly bags or anything. It was just whatever I could do, whatever I could find was how we had to make this happen and work. But, so I guess from there, just to skip ahead just a little bit on the history to more of where you guys come in here. So that first year I was still doing everything part-time. 2015, I'd basically work all day at a day job, and then I'd come home and work the rest of the day, on Outdoor Vitals. And in like November of 2015, I remember specifically having a day where I sold so many sleeping bags at that point in time that I made more money in a single day with Outdoor Vitals than I made at the entire month of my day job. And I was like, all right, I think it's time to quit the day job and just start spending time here. Because at that point in time too, like, why would you do that? Like, why would you like wait that long to quit? Well, all it was inventory. Like, I could not get enough inventory. I couldn't afford enough inventory. It was just constant reinvestment. I was living, me and my wife were living as cheaply as we possibly could and investing all of our money back into the business to get more inventory because we were constantly stocking out. But when I had that day where I was like, I made more money in a single day than I will in the entire month at my other job, I should probably quit the other job. So that's when I quit that and just was in Outdoor Vitals full time. So that's like November of 2015. And then by March of 2016, things had continued to take off so much that I ended up hiring the first 2 employees, and I hired them on the same day. That was Darren and Riley. If you go way back in the archives of YouTube, you'll see like some old vlogs we used to do. And, I sometimes like one of those will get pulled up and I'm like, what were we doing? Like, I have no idea. And this is about where Dave's going to come into the picture here because so in 2016, and I'm not going to share a lot of numbers, but this was just kind of an interesting thing because when I started the business, it was like, man, if I could get to $1 million, I'll have like made it, right? I'll have made it. Well, 2016, we hit $1 million. So you're talking like the first year that I was actually just working full time in the business, we broke and passed that milestone. So it was really interesting because then it was like, okay, that's probably really when I started to envision what we could really build, right? That was when I was like, okay, I don't want to just sell any product. I don't just want to sell like, as we started the business with like the most affordable down sleeping bag you could get a hold of. Well, to be totally honest and frank, I didn't even know what a premium down sleeping bag was like. I just knew that a down sleeping bag was 10 times better than what I'd used growing up my whole life. So it was around 2016 where I started to really learn more about quality product and start testing and using other product and started to get this vision of like, hey, I could build any business now. Like, it's not just about getting it off the ground and getting cash and making it like a career or anything like that. It's like, no, now I've got I'm up the first rung on the ladder and I can choose which direction I go from there. So I'd say it was about 2016 where I started to really envision like getting in with really like trying to build out the network of factories to be in producing in the highest level factories and the highest level fabric mills and using all the best components. Like I started to put together like what did I really want to build? And I think that came throughout 2016 when things were just growing and booming at the level they were. So that all being said, Dave, when did you start in Outdoor Vitals?
I think it was 2017 or 2018. I'm not sure. I know it was the springtime because I remember right when I started, I went to Yosemite and took a trip there with some product and tested it out for the first time. But right around there, I don't know if I'm coming up on eight years, I think. So whatever the math is on that.
I think it would have had to have been 17 then for sure. So you would have been hired 1 year after like Darren and Riley essentially. So when you came into the office, like maybe just walk viewers or listeners through like how the heck you even heard about us, but then like what was your perception of us versus like starting day one on the job and what that was like?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, I was kind of plugged into the outdoor industry, gear, things like that. I worked as an outfitter and guide prior to Outdoor Vitals, so I was familiar with outdoor gear, things like that. And I went into a consignment shop / outdoor store that was just opening up in Cedar Sports, and I saw one of our bags hanging in there and checking it out, talking to the guy. I was like, hey, this bag's really nice. I've never heard of this brand. Can you tell me a little bit more about them? And the owner actually happened to know your brother, your family. And so he kind of explained Outdoor Vitals, they're right in Cedar, told me a little bit about how, it's a direct consumer brand, but since you guys knew each other, kind of put some gear in there to check out. So I went home, did some research on Outdoor Vitals and saw that you were hiring. Applied and, came in for an interview. And then I
I see.
really I didn't know what to think, honestly. I didn't really have any perceived expectations, just
Yeah.
some YouTube videos, really.
Yeah, I was just going to say that as back then there probably wasn't as much of a perception around it because you just barely found us and then came almost straight over. It seemed like, right? So
Hmm.
so first I guess week or a couple days on the job, like maybe just describe what that was like. Like what kind of things were you doing? What was the atmosphere like?
I would say the best way to probably like disorganized. I would say that would be a good way to sum it up. I think at the time everybody was probably a little bit, I would say over their head, but everybody was dipping their toe into all different aspects of the company. And that's what I liked about it. And that's what I still do like about it. But, um, kind of organization was a big one for me. I'm very organized. Like everything needs a place, a spot. And so that was my biggest challenge when I first started was kind of just getting inventory in the place where it needs to be, easy to find, kind of
Yeah.
feeling the other two guys out, what their role is. Don't want to kind of step on anybody else's toes. Just figure out, everybody's role,
So
mesh,
you
gel together.
Yeah, I'm sure it was really not clear, and I'm sure that like organization was not a thing. Like what's interesting, I guess, is I love organization. I also love the idea of organization, but I don't necessarily feel like in my life I can ever keep things just totally organized. It's like slowing down to the point of like constantly being organized can be, at least especially in those early days, just didn't make like logical sense on productivity and output. And um, so yeah, like I mentioned, I basically worked from home from like November 2015 to like March of 2016, so like 4 months, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. So then we rented a space here, brought on those other employees, and I would say if there was something that like worked to get this business off the ground, it was probably just like my extreme focus on like lean startup mentality of like, I mean, when like you could attest to this, like what were people using as desks and tables
Yeah.
and stuff when you
I
came
was
in?
I was just gonna say that we had folding, folding plastic, like picnic table type desks. Uh, and then at one point we got fancy and put like skirts around them. I remember we got like Velcro, so to hide the
We
wires.
velcroed like a black little skirt around them,
Yeah,
right?
like a banquet skirt, make it look a little bit fancier. But and I do remember too
Oh
when you're like,
yes,
all right, I think it's time to buy some desks. I was like, no, I'm good with this.
yeah.
This one, it works. It was working for me.
Well, that was
But
the thing is we would hire the right people because like yeah, I mean we were literally on card table, type type desks and in really cheap chairs and different things. And it was like when it did come time to like, hey guys, should we get something better? And most of the guys in the office would be like, no, we're good for a while. Like so, it was like I think in some ways that was like a positive that we had people on the team that were willing to be gritty and just and save it anywhere that we could so that we can invest in all the areas that we felt like we needed to because. But yeah, I totally forgot about those skirts, dude. Those were constantly falling off.
yeah,
They looked so bad because they just like attract the dust and stuff to them, and they're black. And oh man, I did. And the amount of times you like, I feel like everyone just like would hit their knees on like those crossbars underneath
yeah,
the
yeah,
tables because really on those tables like you've got these massive like little like A-shaped looking things coming up from the two corners
yeah.
on it. And so really like the only place that's comfortable to sit in those is in the very middle of them. And oh man, I totally forgot about those
Hey, you know what I was
little
actually
fancy
looking at?
skirts.
You're talking about the old days of the vlogs was, I don't know why it popped up on YouTube, but the one with the like witch in the bathroom, it's still up if anybody wants to go back and look at it. That's probably years and years ago, but we put like this random kind of looked like the Grudge witch in random
It's
places
like
in the
creepy
warehouse.
doll thing, yeah.
Yeah, turn the light on in the back and somebody would record it.
We had a little time frame where I think it was around Halloween or something. Someone brought it in and then we'd like place it randomly around the warehouse or bathroom or different things and try to film people getting scared. That thing was creepy as heck. I mean, that thing was very scary. I actually took it home after that and scared a family member, and I legitimately thought that they were gonna like not talk to me and for a long time. They were so mad. Yeah, we were messing around. I remember we tried like at one point on like the vlogs, we'd try to like mix it up. Because we were doing so many different jobs, right? Like everyone had 5 jobs and was doing so many different random things. You know, you could like if you were working on, let's say it was like Riley's position, it's like, all right, you're doing graphics, you're doing video, you're doing website design, you're doing like emails, you're working on Amazon account. Like it was just like so spread out. So we would try occasionally to like have some fun around the office. I remember we did some kind of a bowling thing in the back once. I don't remember. I think that was a vlog. Probably messing up your little warehouse space. You probably weren't happy about that, but
with like bike tires, something with the bow and arrow. I remember shooting.
Yeah, we picked a giveaway winner by shooting a bow. Remember when we tried to start fires with a magnifying glass and had a winner for that?
Yeah,
I think we were picking a giveaway winner with like each of us had like a sponsored person, and then we'd try to start a fire with the magnifying glass in the parking lot.
But like
it was
going
random.
back to everybody having their own role and kind of doing different things. One thing in going back to the interview with starting up was you said for everybody to take 15 to 30 minutes a day and kind of try and learn something new. And that really was something that stuck out to me, especially in that role. In the beginning, it was a great way to learn all the different things that we needed to learn to, I think if you didn't say that, or that wasn't kind of a policy, I don't know if people would have took the time out of their day because like you said, everyone's so busy. It's like, I need to figure this out, but so that was definitely something that I found to be very helpful in starting from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've tried to do that. I mean, we still run like a book club thing, and but that was huge for us, and huge for me was just constantly trying to learn, because this wasn't a second business, it wasn't a third business, this was the one and only. And I mean, I think like even to skip ahead a little bit, I think it's really unattractive, and probably why we don't talk about it a lot, like to really look at the first few years of business, right? Product quality levels. Like I will always stand by the fact that I think that whatever product we had, we sold at an incredible value. We were selling $100 down sleeping bags, right? Like that was the product for years, was a $100 down sleeping bag. And so compared to what we build and make today, it's just a completely different product. And so it's, in some ways it's like, oh, we don't want to talk about that, because we did, like through the course of getting this business off the ground, we did create a little bit of a paradigm, like an issue, I guess, where we got labeled as like this budget brand, but I had like since then determined, say in 2016, that we wanted to build to be this innovative, higher end brand that was still selling direct to consumer and still really focused on helping people get outside. And so we had this gap that kind of originated, which makes it hard sometimes to talk about these like early times and how gritty it really was. But so with that, though, what's interesting, I think, is for me, there was a time probably around 2016 or 17 where I had a mentor say, hey, it's time to sell your business. And this is like not really someone I was like meeting with a lot, but it was someone that I'd been connected with that had done a lot of the things that I had done. He'd built businesses and sold them over and over and over again. And so he's like, hey, it's time to sell your business. Like we had started on Amazon as like a stepping stone. So meaning I never wanted to be an Amazon business. I just wanted to use Amazon to get to cash flow and then build a bigger business, which is great because like today Amazon's like 5 to 10% of our revenue, if that. So, and he turns and he's like, hey, it's time to sell your business and you can start the next one. Like you can do whatever you want. You could retire. You could be done. And my whole thing with him was like, it took me like 30 minutes or longer of me trying to explain to him that if I sold the business, I'd wake up the next day and want to rebuild the same business. And I think most businesses act like that. Most businesses will go and do that. And so then on day one, they do have like this sexier, more clean start, right? They've got like the brand's dialed, the product's dialed, all these things are dialed because you're starting with years of history, with relationships, with knowledge, as well as with more funding. Whereas for us, really, we did this big shift, and I just decided like we're just going to make the shift. We're not going to like end a business, start a business type of thing. And so there is like this element of us when you really dig back in the archives that's just crazy to relive compared to where we are today. And it does not align. They're very different businesses, but we went through this shift. So I just kind of wanted to, I guess, call that out a little bit of like, we could have done the traditional thing of sell this business off and start a new business that was more how Outdoor Vitals is today, or was exactly how Outdoor Vitals is today. But for me, I always wanted to be in this long term. I didn't have a desire to sell it and switch and do all that. So we've just chipped away for years at shifting some of these things to the higher end product and higher end manufacturing and designers. And, Brigham, I think, would be our next oldest employee. He's out of the office today, but, Brigham's been here since 2019 now. So he's 5 years in at this point. And, but yeah, a lot of, I guess, shifts just to note there as far as like what's different about our startup. So I guess I think when you got here, we were already in this other unit B, right?
Yeah,
okay,
we were in unit B.
So going back to just when we were down in the end of this building, Dave, any other thoughts or stories or things come to mind as far as just like what the atmosphere, what life was like at Outdoor Vitals at that point in time?
I mean, yeah, just all being in that same little office was one thing that stuck out to me. And, I think it was a good thing because we were all, everybody didn't have their own space. We were kind of all in the same room, conversating, talking about things. And then the next thing that really stuck out to me is when, I guess, the breaking point of when we needed a bigger space, when we would get pallets in or pallets out or whatever, and you were like, I couldn't move. Like I was like walking sideways, trying to scoot through, find things, and that, and actually moving to the newer, bigger unit, like that. Those days like stick out in my head. I really remember, moving all the stuff over to the bigger unit that day, and with Caitlin. I remember Caitlin came over. I was there kind of later in the day, and she came in and she's like, wow, this is like so much more space. This is so much better.
Yeah. Well, I remember, you are like the organized guy, right? And I remember you just constantly working so hard to like keep the back organized. Mm-hmm. And I can remember when it got to the point where there was just an aisle like down the back of that unit, and it was almost like you had to walk sideways to get from one end of it to the other. You had to like move a pallet to like get to the box to have enough room. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because we had like 2 shelves or 2 stacks on each side, and then we had a row of pallets. And so if you ever needed anything, you'd literally have to like start shifting pallets out of the way to get to the inventory. Not to mention, and for years and years and years, it was just the most economical to ship product with these big yellow bags that came, like they'd ship them through FedEx. But to like give you an idea, it's like a 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot bag, and they weighed about 70 to 90 pounds each of them. The FedEx guys hated us because they're like the most, like you take, so we'd fit what, maybe, I guess you could do the math on that, but it's like 30 sleeping bags in one box or one like compressed bag here. So 3 pounds times 30 sleeping bags, they're like 90 pounds, right? And so they hated it because like they have to like lift this massive, awkward 90-pound bag, somehow like shift them in, and we'd be getting like a handful of them at a time, usually 3 to 5 or more. And then I remember specifically having to go through like a safety thing and being like, this is how you have to open this bag so that you don't get injured, because they would compress them so tight, and then they'd wrap ropes, this cord around them. So they'd do like 3 loops one way, then they'd spin it and do like 3 loops the other way. And that's what held all of the compression in, because like, so then essentially what you do is you'd have to take like scissors or something, and it was so tight you couldn't possibly get the scissors underneath the cord. So you'd have to like take a knife and cut from above. But the thing is, when you'd cut from above, when it finally would pop and break, it sounded like a gunshot went off, and it would like fling the rope back. And so it was like, okay, you have to like, make sure, like if you've got safety glasses around, wear safety glasses. If like wear gloves if you can, so that rope doesn't pop and smack you, like stay out of the way. And it'd just be like this, like you'd be like reaching over and just like gently touching this rope with a sharp knife until it just boom, and you got to do that 9 times with also by trying to avoid cutting a sleeping bag in the process. I mean, that to me was always
those things.
Well, by the time I got in, the bigger worry with those big yellow packages was the China dust.
Yeah.
The China dust. That's true.
You'd
So we
sneeze
manufactured
so
in
much.
China basically through 2018-19 for the most part, and China dust was a common term around our office. So explain what the heck China dust was.
Well, you'd open these. They were still using these yellow packages, by the way. By the time I started, which was, I think it was also 2017, but towards the end of it. And yeah, when we were opening up these yellow packages with sleeping bags or inventory for different things, not only do they explode open, but they explode open with all this dust that I don't know where it comes from, but it's kind of like dusty in there. And it would like shoot into the air, it'd shoot up your nose, it'd shoot all over the warehouse, like just this dust, and it smelled weird, like
It specifically had an odor.
I think it's some of it from being packaged up with down product for however long as they were shipping it from our manufacturing partners to our warehouse. But yeah, that China dust got everywhere.
It doesn't cause cancer except in the state of California, but so yeah, so yellow bags, and so with that though was where what spurred that thought was like at that point in time, because we'd ship that way because it was so economical and we could get the product as fast as possible. Like shipping FedEx is 7-day shipment time versus now shipping on the ocean could be 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And so we do that to get the product as quick as we could because we were moving through it so fast. But then it would be this disaster because you'd open those up and now you've got 30 bags just laying on the floor with no boxes, no containment. So then we'd be stacking bags, like trying to like stack bags on shelves, and the amount of times I feel like those just came crashing down.
Yeah, I mean, so if someone wanted to picture it, it's just, those big steel Home Depot shelves, and that was really it. We didn't have like boxes in them. They're just stack them on top of each other. You're pulling out, 10 of them would fall down. Just very different.
I remember too, we'd occasionally bring in people to help. And I don't know if you were there for this or if this was before, but we brought in my cousin Jesse for a while, and he was doing like some return type work and shipping type work. But I also remember really early on, I brought in a buddy of mine. His name's Travis. And I had him checking returns to make sure that they were, in good working condition so they could be sold again. And anyway, someone had bought a bag, had it like a day, returned it to us. So it was a new bag to us is what we thought, but that's why we check. But I had like just my high school buddy checking these bags. He checks it, says, oh yeah, it's brand new. So we sell it as new, right? And then we get a return that says, I just bought a brand new bag from Outdoor Vitals and there's a dirty sock in the bottom of it. And so needless to say, I fired Travis. He wasn't the right guy for the job, clearly. But I mean, that was the kind of stuff that occasionally would happen around here. It was. We had a few people that kind of cycled in and cycled out, helping with shipping, helping with warehouse. But definitely when we got Dave in there is when everything up leveled and actually had a place in the warehouse instead of was a mess, I guess.
Yep, and I think going back to people that start multiple businesses and just kind of knowing what works, and that was something that I feel like we really had to work the kinks out in the beginning. Was software stuff that worked. Like, we used to do all this in just like a spreadsheet with returns and people's addresses, names, things like that. It was that was our definition of organized, just Gmail for support and things like that. That's all stuff that kind of took time to figure out what worked best for us.
Yeah. I mean, and what it's always been, the dynamic has always been is like we're an early stage startup. And so it's like we have to be as lean as we possibly can. And so what a lot of times happens is like issues have to get big enough, or I have to get enough, like, I don't know, input from employees to finally be like, okay, we can justify spending this money because the need is high enough. And usually, like, instead of being like, hey, I can foresee this being a problem, so we're going to buy software right now, it was always the opposite. Where we have to like justify the cost, usually through just extra man hours or costs or problems. And so there definitely was some of that's going to happen, right? Like there's going to be Like I'm just trying to think of like an example of that, but like going on to like what you're saying, right? Like moving from just a Gmail, support situation to an actual like help desk software system, and the benefits that come with that. But like there's things that break down in those processes that force us to be like, okay, we're going to spend $500 a month on a random software because we're to that point. We have to do it to up level the customer service and stuff. But okay, so I'm just trying to think if there's anything else, I guess, down in that unit before we shift over here. But I guess a funny story in that process. So I had been renting. We rented one unit here in this building that we're still in today. Very first place we ever went to, and then we rented another unit that was side by side with it, and we kind of punched a hole through the wall so we could kind of move product around a little bit. But we were outgrowing that space, and there was these two older gentlemen that owned this building we were in, and they're like, "Oh, we're selling the building," and I never saw a sign go up. I never saw it get listed anywhere. So after about a year, I reached out and was like, "Are you guys selling the building? Like, what's going on?" Like, "Oh yeah, it's for sale." And so I kind of got more serious about inquiring about it. We ended up purchasing the building. Those guys are awesome to this day. I still really liked them. They gave us an incredible deal, which really boosted us forward and set us up on a really good trajectory as a business. But a funny story in the acquisition process of that is this building used to be a bit ghetto, I guess you could say. We had a drug dealer that lived upstairs in an apartment, and his best client living across the hall from him in the other apartment. And it was, they were awesome dudes. They were nice to us. We never really had a problem, but there was a lot of traffic, I guess you could say, just constantly coming through. And so when I was buying the building, I'd said, "Hey, I want you to like evict especially the dealer," right? And somehow, he ended up getting out of the building. But then I signed on the documents for the building, and then I left for a week. So I signed and immediately jumped in my truck and left for the week. And so these guys were moving the units from, we were down in G and F and G, and then they were moving us down to this other unit, B. And I remember when I came back from this trip I was on, I saw this chip in the tile. And I was like, "How did you guys chip the tile when you're moving stuff?" Like, "Oh no, we didn't chip the tile." And I'm like, "Bull crap, you chipped the tile." Like, I walked this unit multiple times, so I kind of pushed them on it, and they were dead set that they didn't chip the tile. And I'm like, all right, I guess maybe I didn't see it, maybe, And about a month goes on, and it had just kind of lingered in the back of my mind. I'm like, this is really annoying. Someone chipped the dang tile. They're not fessed up to it, because I would have seen that when I walked the unit when I was purchasing the unit. And anyways, time goes on, and actually, this is another funny thing. I go to move a propane tank, right? Something very common to have in your front office of a startup, apparently, because that's how we were heating our space. Specifically in the warehouse, we had buddy heater, like a propane powered tank that Dave was using, and we'll have to come back to how cold the warehouses used to be. But I move a propane tank, and there's another big old chip in the tile, and I'm like, what the heck? Okay, maybe I would have missed one chip, but I did not miss two massive chips in the tile. And I'm looking down at it, and I'm kind of chatting to Darren. I'm like, "Darren, there's no way. Like, one of you guys chipped the tile." And they're like, "We didn't chip the tile." So I look down, I could see something kind of glistening in the tile, and I pop up what was in, stuck where it chipped, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, "Holy crap, that's a piece of lead, and that's a rifling going down the side. This is a bullet. Like, there's a legit bullet right here in my hand." And I'm like, "Darren, this is a bullet." And he's looking up at me from his chair, and he looks right over my head, and he says, "Well, is that a couple of bullet holes in the ceiling?" And so I look up, and I see two bullet holes right above my head, and I look back down, and I can see two bullets wedged in the tile, essentially two big cracks where that had hit. And I'm like, holy smokes. So anyways, we reported it, and there was, some things had to happen, but we cleaned up the facility, and I always remember the next time I came into the office, Riley sat right there, and he's like, "Hey, do you think we could get some metal helmets to wear here for protection?"
I remember that bullet hole was a foot away from where the propane tank was. You know,
Right.
like if it actually hit that
Yeah.
propane tank.
Oh my gosh, that would have been insane too. Can you imagine that? I never thought about that. If that bullet had hit the propane tank, could have ignited it or at least spun it around that room and just destroyed everything in there. Wow, I'd never thought about that. Yeah. Oh man. Needless to say, we cleaned up the facility a bit since we've got here. We went from, I think the two older gentlemen that had it before, their philosophy was first person here with cash gets the unit, and I don't think that's always the best landlord policy. So we only don't use a few units in the building at this point. We've since taken over. There's 11 units in the building. Well, 9 office warehouse ones and then 2 apartments, and we're pretty much occupying everything now. As we've continued to grow. But anywho, so that's about when Derek steps into this whole equation.
Yeah.
That probably would have been like the winter of 2017, start of 2018, because we would have just bought the building in like October, November of 2017. So
yeah, I came in right around like in the fall, and so right before it was getting too cold. And the bullet story was still fresh. Everybody was still Riley was bringing up helmets all the time, and
he wanted a metal like war army helmet.
Yeah. It was awesome. No, but I found out about Outdoor Vitals. I was actually going to school, and they started up this new entrepreneurship lecture series. So I was studying business, and I was in this little lecture series class. You get some credit for it, and every single week they just had a different speaker come in and talk about their experience in starting a business or running a company, things like that. And Tayson happened to be one of the ones they invited to come talk, and so, you know, he kind of shared his little bit about Outdoor Vitals, and I was kind of interested. And I was studying marketing, and that's something I really love. I nerd out about it all the time, but I always kind of knew I don't really want to, go into marketing for something that I'm not passionate about. And throughout my life, I've spent tons of time outdoors. I've spent most of my time growing up outside. In college, I was spending pretty much every day with my friends up in the mountains or out mountain biking somewhere or hiking or doing something, camping almost every weekend. That's kind of how I was living in college as well. And so when Tayson showed up and he's talking about this company here locally in town, the same city I was going to school in, I'm like, hey, well, maybe if I can learn a few things here and figure this out, then I can kind of get my foot in the door in the industry, because that's really what I want to do long term. I wanted to work in the outdoor industry as a marketer. So after a while, I kind of set up an appointment to chat with Tayson just to see if I could get some more information and to ask if I could, maybe volunteer, just learn some stuff. So basically I said, yeah, tell me anything to do and I'll do it. A couple hours a day, for free. You don't have to pay me. So we did that. We did that for a couple of weeks. I would just show up after classes. I had like 2 or 3 other jobs at the time as well.
He was going to Mexican restaurants and singing on the weekends for money.
I was in a mariachi band. I was legitimately in a mariachi band, which was kind of cool. I play guitar, and I knew a guy, and so
I've still never heard you play guitar in 6 whatever years I've known you or longer. So I'm not sure he plays guitar or not, but the rumor has it that he'd go play and make money at Mexican restaurants on the weekends. I
did. So I was getting by, couple other jobs plus mariachi band. It was good, but I showed up for a couple hours a day, just weekdays, and did whatever I was told to do. And one of the things that kind of stuck with me, it felt super random, but I guess they had just gone to an expo or something, like a show, and they had a giveaway that they'd done where everyone had to write their email on like a little card, like physically write it down. And so they had these
business
big plastic bags, like 2 or 3 of them, just full of business cards. And I had to go through every single one of these things and like type in the emails as it, read on the cards, and just like go through these bags. And it was like super random and just time consuming. But I mean, I was sitting there doing it and got through it eventually. But Yeah, we've since then we've come up with way more efficient ways to get your email addresses if you want to enter a giveaway. By the way, it's way easier. You don't have to write that on a card anymore.
I remember all those. I was like, can't we get an iPad and just have them type their email in?
It's one of those things where, because I'm not doing it, I'm like, is it really that big of a deal? Come on, guys, just do it.
Just do garbage bags full.
Yeah, it was an enormous amount of business cards, but did things like that and helped ship and package things in the warehouse and whatnot. But that only lasted actually for 2 weeks, 1 or 2 hours a day for 2 weeks, until Tayson's like, hey, actually, okay, we'll start paying you. I'm like, oh, perfect. That definitely helped me out where I was at there. And yeah, from there, kind of just I leaned into the policy of spending time each day to learn and grow. In addition to what I was kind of learning at school and applying in some of my classes, kind of from there just started acquiring more and more skills, or applying some of the skills I already had, and just integrating more and more with the business. We still had the plastic lifetime folding tables. Problem was, when he actually decided to start paying me and officially take me on as one of his employees, Tayson, they ordered another computer, like a monitor, for me to work off of, but they didn't have any more space on the tables, except for one of them was a little bit longer. And so they put 2 of us on the one table. And we brought up those little crossbars before that are underneath those things. And now we both had crossbars directly in front of our knees. And so it was like a daily thing. I'm like super hard banging my knee on this crossbar. And yeah, that was great. But I mean, it worked for a while. The plastic or the Velcro skirt thing really didn't work at that point. I was always getting tripped on it and yanking it off by accident just with my feet. But yeah, it was awesome. It was still fun to kind of banter and mess around with everybody and make fun of each other. I thought that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was just kind of cool. Like, it definitely a different dynamic from what it is now. When I first started there, everybody, like David mentioned, we were kind of just doing everything. I got into customer support after not very long. So I was shipping, doing customer support, started plugging in a lot of things with video. Riley, he was there for a little while still, but I would help him out with some things. And eventually he took off for another opportunity up in northern Utah and moved his family.
The first really big project I remember you and me working on was the Loftic jacket.
Yeah.
Campaign. So that's like one that we both were editing on it. We were both videoing it. You know, it was like, that was the first big one that like I remember, like Riley was gone by that point.
Yeah.
And we were the guys in charge of doing it.
Well, and that's kind of been crazy for me too, because I've never done anything with video.
Derek learned how to edit from me, and I learned how to edit from I have no idea where. So.
Yeah. Well, I used a lot of YouTube videos, a lot. So I would say that I even passed Tayson after not very long because of my YouTube videos.
That's true. I didn't edit very long. I edited our YouTube channel before we hired Riley. So from start to 2016, is that what I said? Yes, 2016.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was using, don't tell anyone, but probably a pirated version of Adobe, like an old version of like non-functioning. Parts of it didn't work in the software. And then, so I mean that, and then hired Riley. So then I didn't have to edit for a long time. And then Riley leaves. Then I had to re-edit and train Derek. So it wasn't a high bar to be better than
No. I mean, even still, like, neither of us are nowhere near what Joe's doing for us now. It's definitely much better, but
AI could edit better than me, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, same. But yeah, we made it work. We were doing it. I was learning. I was picking things up, and away we went. Yeah, I don't know if I have too much else right there from Unit B, like when I first started, but that was kind of the immediate perspective.
Because you probably did come in with a bit of a perspective, right? Because I show up at the college. I'm the successful business owner guy talking to everyone about how to... And keep in mind, like, most of the people in that speaker series were way farther in their careers. Part of why I got invited there was I started the entrepreneurship club at the college when I was in school. And then that club was the one that was kind of responsible for putting on these presentations. And so I was kind of like the most recent successful, quote unquote, successful alumni. But I'm sure that like there's a bit of a perception with me coming in and talking like in a professional atmosphere to then you coming here and being like, what the heck is going on?
Well, I don't know, man. I'm probably the wrong one to ask because, like I said, I had no experience working in the outdoor industry before. Like I'd done plenty of stuff outdoors, right? But I'd never had employment in the outdoor industry. So when I came in, I was like, I guess this is how it is. You know, they're spending their time outside, not in the office. So, okay, I guess the office is kind of crappy. That's fine, you know. But also, I was coming from a perspective of poor college student. I literally like slept in the truck a few times when we had some issues with one of the rooms I was currently living in for school and stuff. It's just like that kind of a
water
thing.
pipe closet you lived in.
I lived in a water pipe closet in one of the houses. You know, they rented out to students, and So for me, it was like,
Put all his clothes and everything on floaties for whenever it would flood.
Yeah, no, actually, in the winter, I would have the window wide open because the house is old. It was heated by hot water in through the radiators and stuff. All of the water pipes for every room, which there were 12 dudes living in the one house. Everyone's water pipes ran through my room in the ceiling. You could see all these exposed pipes. So my room was like 120 degrees all the time, it seemed. And so
it was the boiler room. Yeah.
It would be like -7 outside or 0 degrees or whatever it was, dead of the winter at nighttime when everything's really cold and my window's wide open just to try to survive.
So that's a good transition to the temperature of the warehouse, Dave. When we moved to the bigger unit in the building and we lost a lot of heat. And so maybe walk us through like what was the warehouse like when you were doing a lot of shipping and packaging? Because I know from the outside it was pretty comical to like see you walking around the office. You'd have like 3 jackets on, multiple pairs of fingerless gloves.
Yeah. I mean, also to like hiring Derek, and Derek definitely fits into the culture as, you know, like kind of minimalist, gets it, you know, like we don't need all this fancy stuff, you know, to be successful. So I definitely think, you know, go back to hiring the right people in the right place. Like Derek, you know, he's the vibe we're going for. So I definitely think that helps, you know, at the time. But the warehouse, I mean, there's no heat. So just think of a big warehouse, cinder block walls, what's it, three bay doors, not insulated.
Big gaps in them.
Yeah, feel like you can see outside for sure. The back,
there was exposed rafters, right?
Yeah, no insulation on the ceiling. Yeah, no heat at all. Besides for a propane heater that
basically the weather.
Yeah.
It kept the warehouse basically just kept things from being rained on.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
That's a good way to explain it. Like basically, it was like maybe 10 degrees warmer than whatever it was outside, like even in the winter.
Dude, but then when it would heat up, sometimes it would hold the cold in.
Yeah, it was nice in the summertime. Was nice. I will say that. Like definitely no complaints when it's, you know, whatever it is there now, 100 and some degrees. It always stayed pretty cool back there. So. The summer wasn't too bad, but I would have on thermal pants, insulated pants, probably 2 pairs of socks, you know, prototype down jacket, dragon wool, maybe like a crew sweater, hat, and then fingerless gloves. And that wasn't the worst part, really. The worst part was bouncing from the back to the front. So, you know, I would do stuff in the back, but then I was also doing like customer support, you know, people walking in, things like that. So the front of the building, the offices were heated, and then the back wasn't. So I would constantly be going from back and forth. So I'd be like taking my jacket off, putting it on, gloves on. That's why I had fingerless gloves, to be able to type on the keyboard and then be able to pick the labels and things off like that. But now, I mean, I don't know if you want to skip ahead, but now in the winter, it's actually too hot back there, I feel like,
right.
Compared to where we were, you know, when I was just there.
We don't have as hard of employees as you now. We've got a make it real comfortable for them, so.
I was just back there, this winter, and I was like, this is crap. I'm like hot. I have a t-shirt on, and it's like, you got to turn this heater off. I'm getting burned on the back of my head.
Yeah, we what was it, a year ago? We insulated everything and then installed these giant overhead heaters, and it's just it's cozy back there.
Yeah, not
for
really.
Sure.
You just could get away with a hoodie, if that.
Yeah, big upgrades definitely all around there. Another thing that I think would be interesting to hear about, Dave, is, again, coming back from that startup mentality to other things. You just mentioned you were shipping and you were doing customer service, and I definitely asked a lot out of you, and with the startup, right, it's you have to stretch and stretch and stretch until you get to a point where you can say afford and justify another employee, or right. So what that typically means is that there's these moments where you really too much is asked for you for a period of time until it becomes a breaking point, and then it's okay, all right, we'll hire another employee, or or maybe it's a piece of software or something, but you almost have to get these breaking points. So, you kind of were the customer service guy for pretty much anyone that's listening, they've probably only ever dealt with you or since you've been on, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear your perspective on us going from the different levels of customer service, because I feel like today our customer service is highly well regarded. We get a lot of really positive comments all the time about our customer service and how that goes. But I don't think that's always been the case, even though you're still the same guy, doing a ton of it, right? So maybe just kind of walk through the process of any shifts that have happened over time with customer service and how that's evolved.
Yeah, the biggest thing was getting software to kind of track, orders and, linking particular customers to their orders, and things like that. So that was the biggest thing for me, was to be able to see, what had this person ordered in the past, or just having everything very easily accessible instead of having to go back and dig and find out when this person ordered, what they ordered, we've had so many different generations of products. Maybe it was a warranty issue, trying to figure out, if it's a Gen 1, Gen 2, zippers might be different, fabrics might be different, just things like that. So that was, for me, when we went from, here to here, with support, software and things like that. And then also growing the team, even if it's someone part-time, to help with a return or a warranty, or, we grew with pillows. And yeah, I remember, unfortunately, you'd go on vacation and you'd come back and there'd be 50 boxes behind you with just whatever it might be, Amazon's boxes, things that needed to be checked into inventory, returns. So, as we grew, it definitely helped take some of the pressure off me and being able to do, different things around the office and kind of, dip my toe into different things. Just watching you guys set up this podcast, I don't think people probably forget or don't even know that me and you started this podcast when it was just an app on your phone, basically, and some headphones, and just to get it off.
That's right. It's your fault that I have to do this podcast. Yeah. I thought that you were going to be the host of it. I was like, oh yeah, I can sign Dave up to be the host of the podcast. Next thing you know, I've committed my whole life to an hour a week.
Customer support, inventory management. Oh, let's do a podcast too.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Hey Dave, come out of the warehouse to do a podcast.
Figure out how it works. Get it on there. Find some guests. And figure out how to edit.
Oh, I'm glad we can laugh about it, because we truly, the more you learn, right? I always liken it to like you're hiking up a mountain, and the higher you hike up, the farther you can look back and see, and the farther, the more you know, right? If the higher up you go if that was the synonym there, is how much you know, or the higher up you go on the mountain is how much you know, right? Because it's the farther you can see. it's funny now to look back because you can just see all of the holes and the problems and the things that we did wrong, or the expectations that we had that were like, what were we thinking here or there? And yeah, oh man, I totally forgot about the origins of the podcast and trying to make all that work, and trying to like hook up 2 microphones. And
we had one at the time, and I talked much quieter than you did, and then trying to edit just one microphone and things like that. And but that goes also back to, the startup mentality of, figure it out, get it out there, figure it out and make it better as you go. Like, even making a landing page, a website for the podcast, kind of like learning how to do that. Things just learning, and it's definitely I don't look back and regret any of it for sure.
Yeah, it was all learning experiences, and I mean, and all of it, I would say, like, all of it worked. It's just like, it was just always that maybe us trying to do a hair too much potentially for like the resources we had, but at the same time, that's kind of, in some ways, that's what is required, right? Like, I look at a lot of people who have tried to start businesses and things, and like, you try to like pinpoint what's different between them and me, and some of them will succeed for a year or two and then they phase out. And I think, a lot of what has made us be successful is just the level of hard workers that we hired, and the fact that like we could be disciplined long term and just keep grinding and working it out. Because I think a lot of people, they're excited about it when it's working, or they can be excited about it for 6 months or a year, but then when stuff starts to go wrong after that, or things start to get hard, or the resources start to get tapped, they phase out of it, and slowly it just kind of diminishes to nothing. Whereas between myself and the people that we've hired, the team here, we've just continued to grind and dig, and we get stretched thin, and then it gets to a point where we have to have a conversation and figure things out to make it better, and then we keep going until we hit that point again, and we kind of just hit that rev limiter per se, and that's when we grow. I mean, so to talk about hitting a rev limiter here, let's talk about 2018. So, 2019, I guess, really. 2018, we released the LoftTech jacket on Kickstarter, right? So for us, we started using Kickstarter because we don't have outside funding. We were constantly tapped out on all of our cash because we'd be growing at this rate, but we didn't have enough cash to constantly be, launching new products and expanding inventory and stuff like that. So that's where Kickstarter really came into the picture. So we launched LoftTech jacket. It raises $1 million on Kickstarter, and that's all fine and dandy. But then it's kind of like, all right, Dave, here you go, ship 5,000 packages. So what was that?
Probably Christmas time, if I remember correctly.
Christmas time. No, was it really like in December?
The pants were. I remember that.
Oh, the pants. Okay.
I don't remember when we actually shipped the jackets. It might have been that.
Yeah. The jackets should have been. They started shipping in like October, I want to say, or something like that, or earlier. No, it was earlier than that. But the pants were for sure. Yeah, like Christmas and like basically December to like February, because we had delays on like the dragon wool portion of the shipment. I remember that were sitting on the port, and
I remember how pumped everybody was about that jacket launch, though. I mean, we'd found this insulation that for us we just were pumped about because it didn't collapse, when it got wet, which that's kind of how we sold the LoftTech jacket. Hey, it's basically a puffy down jacket without having real down, and it's just as light basically, and it won't collapse when wet. And everyone is super excited about the technology. Everyone is super excited about the campaign, getting things going on Kickstarter. But we were all, I don't know, we were going crazy. I feel like everybody was just so stretched thin. That was where I kicked off my acting career. I not only was in a mariachi band, but I'm an actor and filmmaker, apparently, editing it and all these ads. And
it's required. We needed it.
So, we did that. We did all this work to try to create some videos and take a lot of pictures. I think we actually paid someone for the first time to get some more professionally done photos of the product. We hadn't done that for products before. But then had this Kickstarter. We did get $1 million on Kickstarter for it. Plus, after the Kickstarter ended, we sold, I think, well over $1 million as well in additional sales. So we were pumped about that, like because when Tayson had, just a couple of years ago hit 1 million, he thought that was a milestone. Now we're hitting 1 million in one product launch, and everyone was pretty excited about that growth and that milestone, but like Dave said, then things really started getting hectic. I think we saw a big increase in our daily sales for a while. Everything was shipping at a faster pace. Everyone was getting more customer support tickets that we were having to answer, which I was still on customer support then as well, answering a lot of questions about things, and it was busy.
Yeah. So it's pretty fitting right now that you can probably hear some background construction going on, just because the show must go on around here. We're continuing to do it's just constant renovation, I would say, around the office the last year. But we're adding some doorways between units and just redoing some things. So if you can overhear in the background a little bit of, I'm not sure what the heck is going on, drilling or cutting or something, but it's gritty as always around these parts.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I don't really hear it. But would you say, Tayson, that the Loft Tech campaign was kind of like the turning point for the brand, to kind of put us on the map, or that's when you like opened your eyes to maybe rebranding and
Yeah, 100%, because 2016 and 17 I started to like realize where I wanted to build the brand, but there was still a gap, right? Because there's still this gap in, like, I don't have industry contacts still. I don't know the fabric mills, and why would they work with us? We're at that point, right? 2016, like 90% of our sales are through Amazon, right? So it's like we're like just some Amazon brand, and then we're going to go to a factory that manufactures for Arc'teryx and be like, hey, you should take us on as a client and a customer, and they're going to be like, yeah, we don't work with people like you. Like, you know what I mean? Like we have a reputation to hold ourselves. And so we had this gap still. But when we launched the Loft Tech jacket and we had all that success, it was like this third-party badge over here that said, like, look at what we can do. This is verified. This is where the brand's going. Look, and so I was able to take that and basically bridge that gap. I went and pitched New Yarn, Toray, our backpack manufacturer, Fabric Mills, and I would use this as the reference. Hey, look at this jacket. We're a new brand. We're doing this. And every single company that I talked to at that point said, yeah, we'll take you on as a client. Like, let's start working together. So that really was this turning point where it went from like, this is the gap, like this is where I want to be, this is where we're at, there's this gap, to taking and leaping over that gap and starting what we consider Outdoor Vitals 2.0. And then the flip side of that too was, at this point, I had been designing all of the gear. And let's face it, I'm the president of the company, right? And so I'm managing, I'm trying to build this. I'm the chief marketing guy at this point, right? Like, I'm the guy on camera. I'm the guy, like doing these things. And I probably was running all the ads at that point. So like, because Derek hadn't transitioned to covering, like at this point, like Derek runs the ads, and at this point, Derek sends every email and stuff. But like, so like I was very spread thin, and I was doing product design. So then with the Loft Tech jacket, that's where I was like, okay, it's time to bring on a full-time designer that all they do day in, day out is design and improve product quality and innovate. And, so yeah, it really that was the massive tipping point for us, for sure, where we, started to actually bridge that gap, right, and whatnot. And so that started really like in 2019, let's say, because it was like the very end of 2018 and 19, started 19. But then the thing about that was like, so we bring Brigham on in May of 2019. And I say, all right, Brigham, here's our product line currently. I want you to go back through all of it and polish every piece of it. Like, I want you to like change and improve every little piece of what's not at an A+ level of quality and design. And in the meantime, I also want you to be designing completely new products. And so that process took years, right? It takes years to go through, sampling and finding the right stuff to swap out on this and that. And so it takes years to work through an entire product line and improve all of it. So it wasn't until, I would realistically say, about 2021 when like everything had been redesigned and repolished. And I mean, it was like starting before then, and like there were certain products that were coming out that were really polished. Honestly, starting with the Sawtooth pant, anything after the Sawtooth pant was like polished and at a different level, using premium fabrics, using premium manufacturing and stuff. So everything, and that I guess was like 2019. So all the new products after 2019 had already been, had Brigham's entire focus on design, but then we still were working through older products and polishing those for a while. So around 2021, I would say, is when it was like the outside world was getting our product and being like, dang, like this is really nice product.
I will also say, like, with Brigham joining the team, that was also the first of like ever having an in-house basically built prototype as he started working on the shadow light. That's right. Something that he started sewing right here in our offices by himself, and then from there we're able to work with the fabric suppliers and those manufacturers, all these premium level partners, to then get everything we needed. But the design work was all done right here, and before Brigham that had never happened before. It had all been kind of like, hey, you make a prototype, we give feedback, and that happens however many times.
I mean, before that, like realistically, my primary software to design product was Photoshop. I was just drawing things in Photoshop and editing things in Photoshop and marking down measurements and relying heavily on the sample rooms at these factories to take that, interpret that, and build something. And I'd get it back, and we'd just go through rounds of iteration. But I was designing out of Photoshop. So I mean, it was cool. We started to do in-house prototypes and just brought in a whole different level of expertise and time and attention, and a second opinion, I guess, on all of that, and a way of looking at it. So I mean, Brigham didn't join the team, and he wasn't interested in designing what we had designed in 2016, right? He was interested in this really high-end, high-polished products that we were wanting to move towards anyways.
Yeah, well, and I think it helped us know what direction we needed to move in with some of that gear. Like you mentioned already, even today, Tayson, that like 4 years before this point, even a down bag of any sort was considered premium to you, right? Whereas that's not the case, and we know that that's not necessarily the case. There are plenty of budget down bags. There are plenty of budget down bags out there that are just
too
not
bougie.
Up to par.
Yeah, apparently I'm too bougie because I don't think I would sleep in our original bag anymore.
But I think even internally, Brigham, with the training and the experience that he has, he helped with that paradigm shift. It's not like none of us had ever used actual like great gear before, or had like you said, we wanted to design better gear, but because of his training and his experience, he helped us kind of know where we needed to get to actually have the right products coming out, and had the right perspective, I think, for that too. So
yeah. All right, so we skipped over one part of the puzzle that I think is just an interesting one, and that's pillows. Why the heck did we have this program running for years that was pay for the shipping, we'll send you a pillow? Why would we do this? What's going on with that? I think different people had different perspectives of like maybe they thought it was gimmicky, other people loved it. But I think we ought to talk about it, and also talk about just how crazy that got, right? Because from a shipping perspective, Dave, like in the high point of that, what's called a funnel, right? You're trying to bring in leads and new customers. We were shipping 100 to 200 pillows a day. Pillows was a major part of your job.
Yeah. I mean, too, with that, like, I still get people asking me about that. Like, if it's legit, I see it on social media, like, not, like, is this too good to be true? Go ahead. Yeah,
and I mean, we are putting an end to that now. It's run its course and it's over. But to the question of like, why did we do this? Like, what the heck are we doing? Isn't that like super weird? Well, think of it from this perspective. Because we're a direct to consumer business, we have to go and find each and every single customer. They don't walk into REI and see a product and be like, wow, what's this brand? Ask the sales rep, or buy this product and get to know us that way. And that's a big deal, right? Because retail is a monster compared to direct sales. I mean, they are just so big. And like if we did retail, I'm sure we would probably triple in size in a year if we opened up the retail side of the business. Like there's just so much more volume in retail. But for us, we have to literally go and find each and every new customer. And so this was a way that we were able to bring in new customers. And yes, we would actually lose money on these pillows that we would ship out. But what we would then do is we would do that because on the back end, if we say sold product to 10 customers, if we sent out 10 pillows to 10 people that paid for the shipping, and we lost, I don't know, X amount of money, what we found is that, let's say 2 or 3 of them would then turn around and buy something else from us within 30 days and become real customers of ours. And, then at that point we'd turn a profit, we'd make some money, but then we could hang on to them as lifetime customers. And at Outdoor Vitals, we have one of the highest returning customer rates of any business I've ever seen, especially in like e-commerce, right? Like the amount of customers that buy from us and then buy again from us is exceptionally high. So we can kind of bet on, if we can turn them into a customer one time, they're going to order from us and order from us and order from us. So the pillow funnel was really just a very clever way that we came up with to bring in new customers. And it was kind of like a backdoor way of doing it. It's not just straight advertising to straight come buy a product on our website. It's, hey, let us give you something. We'll lose a little bit of money, but we're betting that some of you will come back and become lifetime customers of ours. And I guess not to mention too, it actually worked out pretty well for us because as we had made some of these shifts and as we were selling on Amazon, there was a few of our products that like sold exceptionally well on Amazon until another brand came in and like copied our product and copied the listings and, copied the images and then undercut the pricing. And on Amazon, it's like a fire hose. And if it's directed at you, you're selling $1 million of this product. And then tomorrow you could be selling $0 of this product. And so we had like 2 years of inventory that had happened with some old bags called the OV Lite. It was an old, like a tiny little synthetic sleeping bag. And so we also used this these pillow cells to then try to upsell them some of our clearance products. So we were liquidating all this excess inventory to the people that were buying the pillows. And so it was just like this whole thing that like networked together, ended up being a net positive for us to bring in new customers, to liquidate old products, and just like to collect emails, all of that. And it was I don't think people understood what the heck we were doing. Which is why you'd get emails all the time being like, is this fake? Like, this seems too good to be real. It was a backwards way of doing it compared to how most businesses done.
There was also some entertainment value internally, I think, for me, just to see, if we can keep the pillows in stock, then that's going to mean Dave and some of the warehouse guys are going to have to build towers in the warehouse. And I personally was invested in seeing how many times or how high we could stack the towers and seeing how long we could go without it falling on someone, because that happened all the time. You'd be getting these stacks of pillow boxes, and there was nowhere else to put them in the whole warehouse. The warehouse is completely full. And then you'd be walking by, and sure enough, you'd like barely touch one of those boxes, and it'd come tumbling down on top of you. And I thought it was like kind of hilarious, but
I'm sure the post office people will be happy that the pillow funnels come to an end.
Yeah.
The bags and bags and bags of pillows they used to take. We used to fill up like all of the post office with just pillow, like the mail truck would be
multiple
full.
mail trucks sometimes.
They'd have to come back
full of our stuff.
Yeah, they have to go drop it off and come back.
Yeah, we kept basically a truck busy at all times with some of that. I mean, it's tapered off over the years now, but I think it's finally getting the plug completely pulled on it and move on to newer methods of trying to grow and get our name out there. Okay, man, what did we miss? What other funny stories, I guess, should we share before we kind of, because we're kind of getting to the point now where like that's the more recent stuff and probably stuff we talk about. So I didn't want to spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about that as much as just history and some of the funny stories and
well, I do think there's one thing that's important, and that's something that's still really important to us now in our culture, which is just making sure that we go out on company trips. That's been a part of Outdoor Vitals since the very start. Not only do we value hard workers that are dedicated and okay with getting down and gritty a little bit when there's lots to do, but we want to make sure that there's also a cultural fit with spending time outdoors, which is really why we even exist, is helping people connect with nature, right? And so ever since the start, I always thought that was the coolest thing. I get paid to go backpacking. I told my friends, and everyone was jealous, and I still love that about Outdoor Vitals. And we still do that. But we've had a lot of cool experiences just on trips throughout the years. At least a trip a month for years and years and years, if not more than one trip sometimes in a given month. And I think that's been really, really valuable to all the employees at Outdoor Vitals and to just kind of our overall company culture and how far we've come. Everybody is aware of the products. Everybody is aware of, what it takes to be a backpacker. And most of us have been doing it for a long time.
All right, so give me a funny story from one of our trips. Like both of you, just think back to like a trip that stands out, and let's go through it real quick.
I feel like those early trips, I've had some interesting ones, but I used to always think, I'm like, when I'm going on a trip with Tayson, I'm going to be bushwhacking, going up the biggest incline, the hardest way to get to wherever we're going. We're taking it. I remember
Your fearless leader leading you through the worst trails.
Me, you, and Darren went somewhere once, and I think by your house where you're from, and dumped snow on us. We camped out in the middle of like, I don't know, it was like a road or something, but it was just all snowed in. But those are fun trips. But one that sticks out, and you're probably going to say this sticks out too, is when I don't know, Delano Peak maybe we went to. And I got blasted with the hail, and I decided I didn't want to bring a tent. I was going to bring like a bivvy,
and a tarp.
Yeah, and the storm rolled in so fast.
Yeah, we saw this storm coming because we're up on nearly 12,000-foot peak, and we're like, we better get down quick and get camp set up. So we dropped down to like maybe 11,000 feet, and we're in like a saddle, and we set up our camps as fast as we can as the storm is rolling in. Well, Dave had volunteered to try out a bivy bag for us and see what he thought about the bivy bag, and he threw up his tarp, was in his bivy bag, and my my tent door was facing you, and so I have some video footage of me like poking my phone and recording out of like the little vestibule, you just getting destroyed by hail at 11,000 feet, with this monsoon level storm coming through. And I mean, it was like, I'm sure it was like almost painful to be in there, right? Like, I mean, it was like big hail whipping down.
That bivy bag.
The one and only time you used the bivy.
Yeah. No, let's not make one of those.
Let's not. Yeah, it didn't pass the threshold of what we need out of our products. Bivvies are great, but yeah, the places we would have taken them or have taken them, they were not quite adequate for us at all times.
Yeah, no, those trips are great. I mean, just as far as talking about things not necessarily work related, get to know people, on a more personal level. I feel there's companies, big corporations and stuff that pay a lot of money to take their employees on retreats like that and kind of like team building activities. And, being able to do that, frequently is definitely a perk.
Yeah, I do appreciate now that I'm not always the one on the hook for like where we're going, and I don't have to guide it and stuff, because we also went on a trip pretty recently that turned out to be horrible, and it was nice to be like, Tyler planned it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You don't have to hate me. What about you, Derek? Any trips come to mind?
Well, one that comes to mind is when the first time we tried to hike up to Kings Peak. We took a couple days to do that.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And there was
you were on that one too, Dave.
Yeah. Well, we got to the top when we went. That when I went, that was when I got the first time I experienced elevation sickness.
Oh so, man! You and me both. And dude, I literally was just looking at my fishing pole, Derek, and I was looking at these big gouges out of it, and I turned to my kids and I was like, "All right. What if I was like, I'll give you $10 if you can guess what bit holes in my fishing pole." And they're like, "Oh, I don't know." Start guessing. It's like, nope, freaking rock chuck eating our gear.
There was one point where it pretty much destroyed Darren's backpack almost completely.
Almost ripped.
I remember that.
Yeah, almost ripped his whole shoulder strap off.
Like he almost didn't have a shoulder strap to use. Yeah, it was crazy. But I also remember hiking in the first day.
Oh yeah.
We're walking across this bridge. There's this hiker that's going the other direction, and she had like an ice axe attached.
She's wearing a hiking skirt.
Yeah.
and has an ice axe on her back.
And Dave, like, just apparently pointed out, oh, she has an ice axe, because like we were going in to hike Kings Peak. Do we need an ice axe, kind of a thing? But nobody heard that
All
he said
three
ice
of the
axe.
other people heard.
Everyone thought he was saying that she had a nice butt, and we're like, Dave, like, just because your wife's not here, like, what are you doing?
We don't typically talk like that out here, Dave. You know, this is just one of those where he like kind of like. This is how like I remember. It's almost like kind of like nudge you and be like, "Hey," like points at her,
Ice
you know,
axe.
nice. And I'm like, "Did you say nice?" You know, try to bleep this out so Joe doesn't have to later. And he's just like, "Yeah, did you see that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I saw that." What do you mean? You know? It took us a minute to figure out that you're talking about something different. Oh man, that was hilarious. But do you remember like getting to camp? We were crossing all those snowfields. We had to cross the like we had to like take off our shoes and cross that ice.
Oh
cold
yeah, we were wet the
river
entire
and-
time,
Yeah,
for sure.
I say my feet were wet. I think from the time we got out of the car.
Well, we
till
were
got
also
back.
trying. Yeah, we were also trying to make a YouTube video on that trip about like cheap Walmart gear or something like that.
And you got.
I had that. I had the cheap stuff, which was heavier, bigger, bulkier, and we were banking on it being worse, so it could be an interesting video. And I was the wrong person for the job.
Yeah, we didn't realize that Derek likes cheap crap, and so we gave him the cheap crap, and he's like, "This stuff works great." And we're like, that didn't work for the video, man. You're supposed to have a miserable time.
For me, like you can ask my wife, I'm probably one of the least picky people. I do now have a much more refined taste on ultralight gear for sure. But when it comes to a lot of things like food, like a lot of stuff, I'm just not picky. And my wife knows that probably better than anybody. But for me, I'm like, I slept. I wasn't cold, really. I don't know what else I could ask for. And so, especially back then on that trip, that was kind of a fail. But these guys are all like looking at me like, what do you mean it was fine? Like you had this pack that was like however many pounds heavier and all this, you know, this sleeping bag that was kind of really bad.
That was an iconic trip. And there's a few things that come to my mind about that trip. One of the benefits of us doing these trips is it really forces a culture fit. And this isn't a negative against Riley. I still talk to Riley to this day. I think he's awesome. We try to meet up or talk, you know, when we can, and good dude. But that trip was, Riley didn't want to go on it, right? Like that wasn't fun for Riley. That wasn't a culture fit. And so even though I hired him on because of his skill set, he didn't fit the culture. And so that actually was like a dividing thing where we basically got back from that trip because at the last minute he's like, hey, I'm not going to go. He didn't have like a really great reason, you know what I mean? And so I was a little bit like, hey, like this was like our big trip of the year where we really wanted everyone in the office to be there. And but I think in some ways it like helped weed out people that weren't the culture fit, because he ended up shortly after that turning in his 2 weeks and going to a job that was his perfect culture fit. It was in 3D design and modeling. Stuff that we didn't need, but that was what his passion was. And he loves the outdoors, but it was a different type of love of the outdoors. It wasn't really, you know, as much like just backpacking and covering big miles and stuff like that. And so in some ways, like that's one thing I do remember about that trip. The other thing I remember about that trip was, and I don't know, you can probably speak to this, Derek, because your fitness level has probably been a lot more even through the years than my fitness level. Like you can go back and you can see me 40 pounds heavier on camera looking like I'm a squirrel with nuts in my cheeks, you know? Like, and I remember I had been working out really hard that year in the gym and trying to like drop some weight and get in shape because I had some other things that year that I wanted to get in shape for. And I just will always remember like you and Darren, and you guys were like running, like you guys didn't even really work out at the gym. Darren did work out at the gym, but like we'd go running, or you guys would go running, and I would like never run. I'd get on a stair climber, you know, for a little bit at the end of a workout or something. But I just will never forget like watching you guys just like fly up Kings Peak and fly up to Anderson Pass, and me being like, I cannot in any possible way keep up with you guys. I feel like crap. You guys are like bouncing around, hopping rock to rock, and I'm like, Dave, I'm back here hiking with Dave. Dave's head is just pounding from altitude, and my head's like kind of hurting, but I just will always remember that particular image of me hiking back here kind of with Dave and watching you guys just fly away from us as you just kept climbing and climbing. And I'm like, holy cow, like how, I don't know how they could possibly do that. And that was probably one of those other moments in my life where I was like, this is like, I need to find another gear of fitness. I need to figure out, like, I need to bridge this gap, And so thankfully, it really was when we got into trail running and fast packing that I feel like I bridged that last gap where a lot less often, at least, you blow away from me on a climb or something like that, Derek. But I remember literally thinking that it was impossible for you guys to go that fast. I'm like, that is not humanly possible. I don't understand. And that stuck with me. And then the other thing that stuck with me from that trip was plantar fasciitis. So that was like what kicked off. I had to tighten my shoes so tight because they were soaking wet and then my feet were slipping around. I had these Ultras on. And I think I tightened them so tight that it like flattened the curve out of my foot, or at the arch out of my foot. And it was really after that trip that like I dealt with plantar fasciitis for quite a while.
And I think,
but I had my shoes as tight as I could.
If I remember right, I actually Derek had on like cotton ankle socks and like brand new running sneakers, or like sneakers that you just got or something like that. I remember you having on like
some New Balance ones.
Like road running shoes.
Well, yeah, those are the shoes socks I had. I didn't even have trail runners. I had these road running. I had like run some half marathons or something recently, and I was using those same shoes. So like, yeah, or like
yeah. Me and Dave were probably in hiking boots, our big nice hiking boots. Yeah. These guys are in like flip flops running up the mountain.
And you had like ankle socks or like little cotton socks on. I think I remember that. Oh man, he's flying up there.
Yeah,
yeah, man. Crazy times. But definitely some really good times on trail that we've spent. And like I always say, it's hard to like pinpoint the value of us investing the time there, but it's always been there. And, it's just across 5 or 6 different touch points where we get so much value from those trips. But okay. Well, let's talk. I mean, bringing this all back to where we started, 10 years of business at Outdoor Vitals, 10 years of selling product. What a journey it's been. Journey in terms of just product, team, employees, office, outside relationships, manufacturing relationships. There's so much that has just happened over the 10 years.
It's snowballing now too. I mean, Tayson mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast that, this summer actually, where we've got 3 of our products in Outside's Summer Gear Guide. Well, that's been the case actually for a number of years now. We've had multiple products in that gear guide every year for the last few years, plus a lot of other cool recognitions that we've received. And that's just compounding and snowballing, all these different things kind of now.
Yeah, it really is. It's really cool to see. From my perspective, it's really cool to sit back and look at everything and just kind of take it in and be like, man, like because in a lot of ways, I feel like we've made it. Like I think there's people that are like, oh, when did you know you've made it in business, right? Or like, when did you know your business had made it? And I look at it different. Like I knew that we had like made it in terms of like the business was going to be viable for a long time and a real business, like pretty early on. But it never was doing what I wanted it to do in terms of like building the product that I wanted it to build and having the customer base that I wanted it to have and the team I wanted it to have. And I would say, so as I reflect back on like where we're at right now in a 10-year period, I feel like we have made it. Like we're doing exactly what I think we should be doing. We're building the product that I really always wanted to build. We're building a team that I always wanted to build. And so I think that's the coolest takeaway from my perspective is like, what is success? Like there's like this whole concept of like overnight success, right? And to me, like looking at it in 10 years, it's like, yep, like we're this overnight success, but really like that 10 years of grinding is what finally really got us here and got us to where we're at. And so it's really cool, really cool to see that. So in honor of us hitting our 10-year mark, we are doing a big 10-year anniversary sale. And this is going to be a very big sale. This is going to match, if not be better, than our Black Friday sale, which is always our biggest sale of the year. Well, we're going to basically have a Black Friday here in the summertime to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. So we're going to match those kinds of discounts where it's 10% site-wide off for everyone. It's 20% off for Live Ultralight members. And for those of you that don't know, we recently revamped the Peak Tier membership. It's just like a different tier in our membership program. And we did have a bunch of you guys join it already, but you should really look at it because you get 13% off year-round. And on a sale like this, you're going to get 23% off of everything on the website during the sale. Plus, we're doing a really cool T-shirt that's going to, have basically call out the 10 years of business that we have, and we're going to give that away as a free bonus with purchases. So jump over to the website or check your emails for that, and you'll get the details of what spend level we'll give away those T-shirts. And I don't know, maybe this is kind of coming to me right now, but maybe we'll even just put those for sale at some point if there's any left over. But best way obviously to get that is to just shop the sale. If you're a member, go spend some of your credit that you've got built up, and celebrate 10 years of business with us. So we're going to have this huge sale, and there might even be some new colors of certain products. I'm not going to tell you which ones yet, but by the time this sale is live, there's going to be some new colors of some things. Everything, like Tayson said, site-wide. It's a big deal. Like if you've been looking at anything this 10-year anniversary or the celebration we're having, it's the time to jump on it. Yeah. So I think that's probably going to wrap up most of what we needed or wanted to cover today. Any final thoughts on 10 years or however long you guys have been here? I mean, Dave, you're probably coming up on 8 years or so of working here, and Derek, you're probably at what, 6, 7?
I'm at like 7 or 8, 7, almost 8, I think, as well.
Any last comments on just 10 years of business?
Yeah, I've got one. I think we've talked a lot about where we've come from internally and some of the insider details about the last 10 years, but obviously there's a huge factor that's external, and that's you guys, everyone listening. There's a number of you guys that have been around almost since the start and have supported us, and I think we just want to make sure we're thanking you as well for your support and the way that's kind of played into the growth and progress out at Revitals as well. Obviously, without good customers and the support of you guys, we wouldn't be able to get where we're at now either. So that's a huge factor. I wanted to give a lot of you listeners that have been around for a long time a huge shout out as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would definitely say onto that note too. The people that are members, inside of that Facebook group or that email with feedback or suggestions, that stuff doesn't go unnoticed. Like we definitely as a team, recognize you, know who you are, take that feedback into consideration across the team, design team, things like that. I think that's a big sticking point of the 10 years of, using that feedback to design and innovate and move forward.
Believe it or not, we actually know many of you by name as well. Even if we haven't met all of you, there are many of you that we do love and appreciate, and we know you by name. We talk about you even here in our offices and in the team. And again, we are grateful for the role that you have at Outdoor Vitals as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we really appreciate all of you that share the message of what we're doing here, that, recommend us to friends, all those kinds of things. It's our best way to grow. It's the best customers we have. And without you, it really wouldn't be possible. I mean, we've done some massive shifts. It went from us not knowing our customers at all when we were selling just on Amazon in, 2014, 15, 16, to us, feeling like we're able to build more real relationships with customers. And you guys, that you guys truly matter to us. Especially within that membership too, like there's so many people that get in the Facebook group and share and help other people. And I just want to say this, like you guys that especially are in the membership, you guys, like we vote for what we want in life with our money every day. Like you vote with dollars, right? Whatever you support with your money per se is what you're voting for as far as future and things like that. And so with that membership, you guys that are giving us $10 every month, like you're voting on our success and you're voting on us continuing to innovate, and you're voting on a new way of doing business where it's direct to consumer, and we can, hopefully help more people get outside and connect with the vital outdoors and all of that. And I just want to say thank you for voting in us and investing that store credit every month into our brand. It really helps us to stay true to our values and of staying venture capital free and continuing to grow and continuing really to just build the highest level of products and still deliver them at direct to consumer prices. And that's really been a huge part of some of the success and growth lately is just all of you guys that are voting in us and investing in us each and every day. And we'll continue to build out new products. We're always innovating. We'll always have new things coming out, and we'll also, just always trying to add more value into that membership as well. So if you're not a member, we'd urge you to go do that and vote for us to continue to perform and produce for you guys. We promise that we will. And for those of you who have been, just again, thank you for continually investing in us. I mean, a lot of you guys too are like original Kickstarter backers. Like we just mentioned today. Like those of you that invested in that LoftTech jacket, you were a part of a massive change that got us to where we are today. So thank you as well for that. So what a ride it's been. I think everyone in the office is thankful for everything that has transpired, the good, the bad, the growth, the laughs, the struggles. But yeah, it's been an awesome ride. It's really cool to see where we're at today, and just want to say thank you again, and come celebrate with us as we run this 10-year anniversary sale and giveaways and things that'll also be going along in conjunction with that. So hopefully you guys win some product and also get a hold of one of these t-shirts that'll be coming out. So okay, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. If you guys want to share this podcast, that would be great. We'd really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And with that, we'll see you on a future episode.